between her and her sister, the Disney Dream. I can't wait. How about you, Giddy? You want to hear the horn? Yeah. All right.
Hey there! Welcome to another edition of FWIW Disney, For What It's Worth Disney. This is our 4th episode. We're glad you've joined us. We appreciate you sticking with us as we kind of try to feel our way through exactly what we want FWIW Disney to be. My name is Doobie Mosley, and I am the co-founder of LaughingPlace.com way back in 1999. Alongside me, the other co-founder and my wife, Rebekah Mosley.
Ahoy there!
And this week we're going to talk about one of our absolute favorite subjects in the world, Disney cruising. We've been lucky enough to have been on, I believe, 11 Disney cruises. And as far as we're concerned, it is the best Disney vacation that there is. And believe it or not, prior to our first cruise in 2006,
Never.
we thought cruising just wasn't for us. And
Wasn't gonna happen.
we were so wrong. So this week, reasons for you to take a Disney cruise, even if you're not sure that cruising is for you. So before we talk specifically about why we love Disney cruising, Rebekah, why did we not think a Disney cruise was for us?
Okay, well, I can't exactly remember what your, I won't do it for this reason was, so I'll let you take care of yours. But I know when I thought of cruising, for me, I was specifically thinking, I envisioned cruising as being, imagine being in the park one of the holiday seasons, right? And what that's like. Just lines, right? Just people. Everywhere you go, people. Whether it's the bathrooms or the food or whatever, it's people. And for me, that doesn't necessarily make it like I never want to go. I go during the holidays often, but it's just there's a difference between going during peak time and going during non-peak time at the parks. And I envisioned cruising as going during peak time in the parks. And so it was not appealing to me because I just envisioned everywhere I would go, I would encounter people.
That makes sense. For me, I think it was more boredom. You know, just what do you do?
You're on this
You're on the ship, and I'm sure there's only so much to do, and I'm just gonna, for the most part, sit around and do nothing.
And you don't really like the beach, so it wasn't like you didn't get excited when you got to a destination.
Or even hanging out by a pool with a bunch of people. I don't mind
Right.
crowds, but the idea of just being in a pool with a bunch of people or sitting on a deck chair in the sun, these aren't things that I find particularly enjoyable at all. So I think that was my hesitation because that was my perception of cruising. And so the reason we initially took a cruise was because Rebekah's extended family wanted to take one.
Yes.
And so we ended up taking a 7-day cruise on the Disney Magic. And that actually brings me to my first reason why cruising is actually an incredibly good vacation is we went with, if I'm not mistaken, about 7 or 8 people. It is a great vacation if you are in a big family because you are in one location. You're on the ship. But despite that, there are many different things that you can do. And it's very easy for people to do different things depending on their age or their particular interest. And yet you still know you're going to get back together at dinner. Right. You can certainly arrange to get back together for lunch. You can say, hey, let's meet at 2:00 and go see a movie or whatever. And you don't have to worry about, I have to allocate a half hour to drive over there or something. You just
that was a nice thing. Yeah,
right.
it's much easier to have an ebb and flow of a large group kind of doing things together and not doing things together, right. It isn't the same challenge if someone wants to go back to a hotel and rest or things like that can be far more challenging to accomplish if you're at a theme park vacation.
So, and especially with different ages, you can have kids who just want to hang out with other kids at the kids club. You can have the 20-somethings who want to, get off the ship and go see the city or go dancing at night or whatever. And then you can have, the ancient people like me who just want to hang out and do nothing, and yet you're all still in the same location. Whereas at Disney World, if you're going to the Magic Kingdom, that's going to be a little bit harder to accommodate for everybody. So what ends up happening is someone ends up staying back at the hotel, and you just see them when you get back at night, and it feels much more separate vacations.
At least that's been our family dynamic. Even now, when I meet with my family now at Disney World, oftentimes my parents will be with us for a portion of the day in the morning, and then usually they leave around lunch, and then we don't see them again until we get home from the parks. very rarely do they ever, kind of come back and join us
Right.
at some point. They just are with us for a little bit of the day, and then okay, that's, we've had our fun. Y'all, you young kids go, gallivant all over the place.
And another nice thing about that, in my opinion, is even if you're a small family like the three of us, our son, maybe not quite, but he's nearly at the age where he'd be comfortable staying in the room alone. And, we'd be comfortable with him staying in the room alone, to where we could like go out for dinner or something at Palo or go hang out in one of the bars, knowing that we can literally get back to our room in 3 minutes and he can text us, through the onboard communication system they have on the ship. So it's good for that as well.
And then I still can't get over, when we go on cruises, how easy it has been for us. And we've been on cruises that have varied as far as occupancy levels. We've been on extremely quiet cruises by occupancy. We've been on cruises that are near max occupancy.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, I have never only had the option of my room as a place of space, which is what I was worried. I was worried that the only way that I could have any kind of, this is my world, was if I was in my hotel room and or my stateroom. And knowing cruise ships have size issue, I was like,
there's limited space by definition.
I tend to be a little claustrophobic, and so I wasn't sure that was going to be that delightful anyway. But no, that's never been a challenge. There's always some nook and cranny somewhere. There's a deck chair open on deck 4. There's a lounge chair open on a part of the deck where there's people quietly reading or whatnot. There's a window seat on a random part of the ship over by the movie theater. Most of the people are in the movie theater, but there's, some little chairs nearby where I'm able to go sit and just kind of have a little bit of space if I need it.
Wait, I think the single biggest surprise to me about cruising is how often you find yourself the only person in sight.
Yeah, look at these pictures.
The only person. You're not even like sharing a room with one other person. How often you'll go out on deck 4, which is my favorite place, is the deck with the deck chairs.
Mm-hmm.
And you look left, you look right. There's no one else sitting on deck 4. There are places that, even though there's nothing going on in them, most of the time the doors are still open. So you can go sit in the Skyline Lounge and just be by yourself reading a book, even though the bar's not open, but you can still sit there and hang out, or the Champagne Lounge, or the Meridian Bar upstairs on the newer ships. It's so often when you're by yourself, either because of where you choose or when. If you get out early like I do, I tend to wake up early because I have a little bit of work to do, and I'm just walking around the ship all by myself at 6:30 in the morning, and it's so peaceful and wonderful, and surprising.
And then I trend the other way. I'm a night owl, and so I can kind of walk in the evening and enjoy the deck areas or the main lobby area or whatever without. I mean, obviously there are times where there's an event, and when the event is there, you're going to have a much larger percentage of the ship there. For example, the deck party. I mean,
sure.
The deck party, if you're in that main part of the ship, that's tight. But it's not. I wouldn't compare it to like July 4th firework Main Street tight. No. But it is tight. However, you can go be a little bit further away if you want. There's a variety of options, and that's what I did not expect to feel. I really expected to feel kind of herded into.
Oh yeah,
and I didn't. And in regards to that, there's a nice pacing to the experience that can be less likely with for example, if I was talking to someone who was doing the land and sea, who was going to Disney World and doing a cruise, I would suggest Disney World first, and then you follow it up with the cruise, because you'll have that high energy experience, that delight, all of that of the Disney World trip, and then the mellow transition that allows you to actually rest while having magic Disney experiences before you head back to the real world.
Taking that vacation after your vacation that people always talk about when they're at the theme parks, because they're exhausted, rightly so, and they're like, I need a vacation. Instead, you're going right back to work. But no, if you can go on a cruise, I think one thing some people worry about, and I know that entered my mind, is I love Disneyland, I love Disney World. Disney Cruise is like another option in there, and it doesn't seem as good as either one of those other two, so I might as well go to the other two. But it's not. Disney Cruising is a completely different type of vacation.
Very different vacation.
From Disneyland or Disney World. Completely. So you can't really compare.
Obviously no.
So And what it is relaxing. It doesn't mean it's boring. It doesn't mean there's nothing to do. You can keep yourself very busy, but I think it'd be very hard not to come off that ship relaxed.
True. Very, very, very true. And you get the best elements of what Disney does in this service industry, as far as, and by that I mean, not only do you have an impeccable design of the ship with storytelling and the placemaking that we like when we go to the Disney theme parks. You're not just get off and go to an island. Disney's island, there's a story, there's little hidden elements that, as fans you enjoy. There's things like that. And then on board, on ship, it's not just a pub. For example, on the Disney Magic or Fantasy, you have OGill's pub. And so, fans, it'll harken, back to that film. And then when they would have their Rapunzel evening, that part of the ship transformed into the Snuggly Duckling. And so, there's elements like that as well that bring that Disney magic into your cruise.
For sure. For sure. My favorite place, in fact, to hang out on the ship, or one of my favorite places, the Skyline Lounge, where it's a very, very small bar, but it's just perfect. The menu, it's very dark. The menus light up, which is kind of cool. And then the window is night views over cities around the world. So, and then every few minutes it changes to a different view. And I mean, you're looking at a screen,
and the
but
music,
it's really cool.
And the music transitions in the location as well.
And it's not just a static picture
No,
either. You can see the cars moving and lights twinkling. And
it's as if you're looking out on Barcelona or you're looking out on the beauty of Paris.
And it's great. And I've never been in there with more than maybe 3 other people, other than, when they're doing an event in there. So it's just a great, great place to hang out. And we tend to do that on our final night. We never get there, and then it's our final night, and then finally we can't leave the ship without going to Skyline's Lounge, and we'll go there and hang out for a little bit and make me very happy.
And once again, it's not just a bar. It's an experience. And that's kind of how I feel about all the elements of the cruise. It's not just a restaurant. It's an experience. It's not just a bar. It's an experience. It's not just a stage show. It's Disney magic with maybe snowfall or people flying or something. There's magic in it.
And if you've seen pictures of a typical cruise dining, the main dining area with the 2 levels and the chrome and the giant chandelier, which is all good and well, no complaint, but that's not at all what you're getting on a Disney ship. Each main dining area is highly, highly themed.
And so for me, that's one of the elements that I think I really enjoy about the cruise, is that kind of that feeling of Disney immersion, as it were, in some ways. You walk down the hallway from your room to some other part of the ship, and you've got the Disney tunes playing.
So, question for you. I've often heard it said that the Disney Cruise Line does not overwhelm you with Disney. So if you're not a huge Disney fan, you'll still be okay. It's not wall-to-wall Disney. I've heard that many times. But in my opinion, it actually is kind of wall-to-wall Disney. Do you think so? Or do you think a Disney agnostic or even a mild Disney negative would be fine on the Disney cruise without feeling like I've had enough Disney in my life?
I think they do a really great job of presenting Disney in a way that doesn't hit you in the face. Like the music I'm talking about. If you're not a Disney fan, it may just kind of go in one ear and out the other sometimes.
So even though it's a Disney song, if you're not a Disney fan, it just flows through.
Perhaps. I mean, I don't know. I can't speak to it because, Disney's in the blood. Sure. But I've heard similar I've heard similar stories that you are sharing. And so that's how I've transitioned. That's how I've processed it, is that it must be that the way that Disney is presented here is coming across less theme parky to them, and so therefore it doesn't feel to them in that same way. It's in the OGill's pub. If you don't know Darby OGill, then it's just a pub.
Which is pure genius. Which it's subtle, so that if you're a Disney fan, look, Disney everywhere, and if you're not a Disney fan, it just goes right past you.
And then that night when you go to the bar and you're at the nightclub for the nightclub event, it's not Mickey's house party music.
No, it's not. That would be so funny.
But I mean,
Disco Mickey.
They have their family fun, but then they do have their we're gonna just have fun. And the movies and the theater, it's not only the ones that are blatantly, Mickey Mouse's latest adventure.
Right.
We saw Thor Ragnarok.
They're all owned by Disney, but within that framework, they will go throughout the entire company to get their movies.
And I think that's also an element of it. Is now you have this gigantic beast that is the Disney company.
Right.
So you've got Star Wars at sea now. You've got Marvel at sea now. So
and Fox, which I don't think they've started showing Fox movies. I shouldn't even say that. I'm sure though, ultimately though, that'll even further increase the movies they can show on the ship.
So and they already had more than Disney in your stateroom. You weren't locked into, and they had a sports bar where you could, where you would go and you could get your sports fix. We were there for the Super Bowl one year, and it was amazing, sitting on the deck by the pool, watching the Super Bowl, halftime show. Black Eyed Peas is playing. I'm riding around on the aqueduct.
You know my favorite little detail about that?
What?
It was cold.
It was freezing.
They put blankets out on the deck chair so you could comfortably get under a blanket on the deck chair and watch the game on the funnel vision.
And yet, I was on the aqueduct.
And Rebekah was on the aqueduct.
Yes, all by myself. And that was one of those because of the weather. I don't think under normal circumstances I would have been able to have had that many consecutive rides on the aqueduct. But it sure wasn't cold on the aqueduct. It was cold. Really? It was cold as soon as I'd get off and go back up those stairs. But once I got around the corner, then I was cool. Then it was not so cold again. But...
Remember the ice sculpture too? That was really cool.
Oh yeah, that was down in the bar, and and like wings everywhere. Oh yeah.
It's the only time we went with my mom. That was such a great cruise.
That was fun. That was a nice cruise with
Disney
your mom.
Dream, my favorite ship, the Disney Dream.
And we took that cruise when Gideon was about a year old.
Now, our first cruise with Gideon was our third cruise when he was, I believe, about 7 months old.
Yeah, he was under a year.
So what's it like cruising with a toddler? I mean, I'm sure a lot of people think that is the worst idea in the world.
Well, here's the deal. If you are somebody who has friends in your life who are Disney fanatics, who enjoy trips frequently to Disney parks, I would say this is what you should take a moment, take a pause, and when your baby is an infant, enjoy a Disney cruise. Because the character interaction that you get on a Disney cruise is bar none.
It is incredible.
I mean, we were playing shuffleboard. I mean, I'll just share all sorts of experiences over the years. we one time I remember playing shuffleboard. Peter Pan showed up, joined us for shuffleboard. Another time, Giddy got bored at the table. He was walking with you. And Belle showed up. Do you remember that? And he and Belle started up a conversation, and he sat down right on her dress.
Oh yes,
we have this picture of him, and he's just sitting right there on her desk, chatting away. And so we have this beautiful picture of him crawling around the floor with the cruise director, who
cruise director Clayton, who's a favorite of so many cruisers.
Yeah, so just. And then the story that I share often with friends is when we took a cruise, and our friends went. They had an infant with them, and they came to dinner just a little bit late, and she was, she looked a little off, and I was like, how you doing? And she's like, she goes, Rebekah, I walked into the nursery, and Cinderella was rocking my child to sleep, and I was just like, oh, this is so beautiful. So it's just, there's lots of little moments like that the staff was amazing in the child facility. That was our experience, was very positive when Gideon was an infant
in the Small World nursery.
Yeah. Now when he got to be a toddler, it took a couple of years before he was ready to once again go be in that zone with all the kids, because it is
hectic.
Yeah. So he didn't just immediately take back to it, but the nice thing was that he was still in nap zone, so we could trade off back then, and when it was nap time, one of us could be in the room with him while the other was doing stuff. And once again, it wasn't an ordeal. It was like, okay, I'm gonna go, there were some things that, like, you would go check out some frou-frou drink of the day you wanted.
Hey, I like my drinks of the day. Smoothie of the day.
Well, while, during nap time or trade off, we would trade off on that. And so, that kind of thing. It was a nicely paced clearly Disney vacation, but yet with a little one.
One thing that always sticks out in my mind from our first cruise with Gideon, where I believe he was about 7 or 8 months old. He was old enough to be walking while holding on to something. Is there are a lot of people who are cast members on the ship who are parents and who are working, as parents do, and so they are far away from their children. And the way they took to our little baby, just the delight they had seeing a baby that I'm sure reminded them of their child back home, just got...
Or siblings. In some cases, it would remind them of their siblings who were at home.
It's got such incredible special treatment.
Not only the treatment, but just the variety of language, the variety of cultural interaction. I adored, because there's a different way that people from varying nations interact, and I was very thankful to have that, even just for that one little week.
And that's one of my favorite parts of a cruise, by the way, is the fact that people come from all over the world, and you get to meet them and talk to them. And I love, it's probably drives Rebekah crazy, but I love to talk to people and ask them about what it's like, where they're from, about their family, about how they like being on a ship, what they miss about their homeland. And it's just great to get to know a little bit about other cultures, if you want to take the time to.
And we learned part of the reason, some of their goals, why they were doing this, how long they were hoping, how long they were planning to do this. So, one guy was saving up money to go back home and start a cab company.
Which I believe we found out on a later cruise he succeeded and got to do it. Like, hey, what happened to so-and-so? Oh, achieved his dream. Yeah.
So, just, it's one of those things where there was a Disney magic to the cruise that neither of us were ready for. We didn't expect it. So since this time, we're just trying to share with you why we think, if you've been on the fence as to whether or not a Disney cruise is for you, why you should just jump in and do it. And the last one we're going to talk about is the one that I think pops into a lot of people's heads right away, and that is, I'm on the water.
Scary.
It's going to be rocking and rolling.
Seasick.
And I do have friends who are challenged in that way with the Disney Cruise Line, or with cruising in general. I will say that for everybody in our party, everybody that we've traveled with, and we've actually been on cruises now with probably about 20 or so additional
different people.
It has not been a challenge after the first couple of hours or so, because the way that the ships are designed, they have these stabilizing units, but those stabilizing units have to be engaged at a certain point within the journey. And I'm sure with technology changes and whatever, this could even be something that is like, I have no idea what's going to happen with this next class of ships, right? But
there's 3 more coming.
but for now, I will tell you, my experience is that the first night, I tend to try and be up on the deck, up where I can look out towards the front of the ship at the horizon, because being inside, especially low inside, especially near the front or the back inside, makes me feel gives me an uneasiness that initial evening, or whenever, or those first hour or so after we disembark anywhere. And for me, I've just found I do best when I'm on the top deck, or up towards the top and out where the air can hit, out where I can look beyond the most immediate horizon, and mostly just I don't tend to pick one end or the other, kind of stay towards the so.
And there are definitely places you can go on the ship which has even less movement.
Right.
But it's never been an issue for me, thankfully, in the least.
Right. Not at all.
I'm the one guy that's always saying, why can't we be moving more?
Mm-hmm.
What's funny, though, is I feel the movement much more when I get off the ship
than
while I'm on the ship. Because when you get off the ship, that's when you realize, hey, I was moving, because your mind is still moving for the next day or two. Not in an uncomfortable way, just in a, why do I still feel like I'm on a ship kind of way?
Yeah. But honestly, we have had a couple of trips where we did have rocky sea.
Yes. It can happen.
And you did notice that you were in rocky sea because the water level on your glass didn't look quite right.
I remember the one time when I realized that the swimming pool was listing enough to where it was kind of splashing out of there a little bit.
Right, and that was only one trip.
One trip and one time during one trip.
And one time during that trip. And it was a matter of we were leaving Castaway Cay, we had to make a turn that kind of, caused that for a moment. But other times we've been in what I would consider far more, what looks visually turbulent weather, because raining and whatnot, and it didn't have the same visual effect as that did. But what I'm trying to say is that didn't bother me in the way that a coaster does, it's not that kind of, but sometimes I feel like you envision it being like you're in this little it's like you envision the
that you're on the helix of Everest for a 7-day cruise.
And it wasn't that way. It was just more like I was standing on a hill for a little bit, and then all of a sudden I wasn't standing on a hill. It wasn't like I was rocking back and forth. It was just merely like...
So as you can hear, we have a lot of enthusiasm over Disney cruising, and this will not be the last time we talk about it.
Nope, not at all.
So many more topics.
We have to share, like, when you're on the cruise, what do you do?
Yes. Talk about my favorite part of the cruise, the food and the trivia.
And right now,
Castaway Cay.
As we're recording this, our own Laughing Place Jeremiah is on a Maritime cruise, and so there'll be fun Christmas stuff.
Which is a cruise we've yet to take. We got off, our last ship, we got off just as they were about to start Maritime.
They had just unveiled the gingerbread house.
Yes.
And it smelled so good.
We love cruising. We'll leave it at that.
So we're considering doing something that's kind of a things that crossed my desk over the past week type segment. We haven't figured out exactly how to framework it yet.
I like that
or
name.
Whatnot, but things that crossed my desk over the past week.
Yeah, I can see that going across the screen right now.
Okay. So, for example, this past week, it was Mickey Mouse's birthday, and it was the first time that it was on when we had Disney Plus.
Yes.
And it was very nice. You open up Disney Plus, happy birthday, Mickey. Their little video. That was wonderful. That's like, yay. That's
what Disney Plus should be for.
Exactly.
Awesome.
So you had that going on. Then a couple of days later, a tweet pops up. Michael Eisner's telling me that Topps Digital, because, he's involved with Topps, has a Disney classic. No, not classic. It's just a Disney app now, a Topps Disney app. And so you can collect various Disney digital trading cards.
That's cool.
Now, I've been doing this in the world of Star Wars for a while now. I think it's since Star Wars Celebration last year.
Yeah.
And so...
Just yesterday I saw you trading Lieutenant Aurora.
Stop it. Oh, so painful. So painful. Why do you do that? So that crossed my desk. Let's see. Oh, my sister was at Magic Kingdom, sent me these pictures. Finally! There's like a transition in the way bathrooms will be.
Is this
hopefully.
a problem?
I don't know.
Men haven't had this issue that I'm aware of. Is this a problem that women out there have very commonly?
This bathroom by Auntie Galactica.
Auntie Gravities?
Yeah, that's it. It has a bath. It would frequently have a line out the door, but when you would enter, you would realize that there had been numerous stalls that were open, but it's too hard to tell. And so, red, green, simple. I mean, I don't know if this is like a little test, because obviously it hasn't been like a full park rollout, or everybody who knows me would have been texting it to me. Only my sister knows to tell me these things. And we've been looking at the footage of the Merry Menagerie at Animal Kingdom.
That's kind of neat, the puppets they have there.
That's so beautiful, and I guess they're even on the popcorn buckets.
I feel like Animal Kingdom's always got the different stuff for Christmas. I remember we used to love what's it called, the mistletoes.
Oh yeah,
way back when.
Before they had the extremely gorgeous trail of trees at Disney Springs, they used to have a menagerie of trees over
Camp Mini Mickey. Yes,
and you'd go around and play Guess the Tree.
Yeah, which was
whose tree is
not
this?
as easy as you'd think. Man,
some
we
were just themed. Some were just.
We
kind
spent
of
a long time trying to figure out what trees were. Sometimes
we did. It was a good time though.
It was great. And then some really cool new Mickey ears just came out. Presumably they're kind of for New Year's Eve or whatever, but they're pretty.
And then the biggest event, I guess, for Disney fans is that it's time for Frozen 2.
Is it?
In theaters. Already? And so as of this podcast actual release, we will have known how its weekend box office was. But
I'm pretty sure Buffo.
But in the meantime, ABC News has developed a 6-part podcast that's hosted by Ginger Z of Good Morning America. I think she's the meteorologist. And the first one is with Robert and his wife, songwriting duo, the Lopez is who did the original film.
Mhm.
And it was just, like I say, there were so many... I did not expect the emotional roller coaster that I went on as I listened to this little 30 minutes. It made me laugh. It made me cry. It really did. And it also made me excited for this film when I wasn't, particularly because I appreciate Frozen, but it isn't a passionate, film.
Did it
of
leave you a
mine.
little cold?
Very funny. So, I would say that you may want to wait until after you... I have a hard time telling people that there's spoilers when it comes to a Disney animated film. But if you're somebody who's going into the film with like no knowledge, then leave it. Just wait until you've seen the film, and then you can develop a greater appreciation for what you've seen once you know. But for me, I enjoyed knowing ahead of time. It gave me just enough of the beats of the film, as it were. Like I feel like those old, Disney specials or whatever, you learned elements of the film in those.
Oh, of course.
So
Of course.
I don't know where you draw the line at it's a spoiler. So that's why
Whenever you have the creatives talking about behind the scenes, I think you...
It's kind of implied, right?
I think you need to be careful.
Yeah.
You need to be
Okay.
careful.
Okay. So yeah, but it was really the admiration and respect that they have for each other was really beautiful. One of my more favorite elements is when they talk about the creation of the song's ballad, which is out there, Kristoff's ballad, and
Reindeer.
and how their own 16-year marriage and communication within that marriage, kind of, you can hear as they're talking, kind of how that kind of in a way wove its way into the song a bit. I don't know. It's just, like I say, it was surprisingly open and vulnerable. And I guess I shouldn't be terribly surprised, because when you're a songwriter, it's of yourself.
Right.
But then to sit and say that, a lot of times you get the feeling that it's easier to do in music than it is to do in word. And just to hear that. So I'm excited. I'm interested to see. I know they come back for another episode that was promoted in this one, but then they also will be talking to other elements of the creative team. And so I will be very interested to hear them as well, because one of the main threads of this one was collaboration and how collaborative the effort is in making a film like Frozen or Frozen 2. And so I'm eager to hear another piece of the puzzle. So yeah, it was on it's from ABC News. You can find it where wherever you pick up your podcasts.
Looking forward to hearing that myself, and looking forward to seeing Frozen 2.
Mm-hmm. What's on your Disney Plus hit list now? What have you watched this week? And then that's how we'll wrap up.
I saw Brink. Brink was good.
Okay, so Brink.
Obviously, The Mandalorian. I actually really enjoyed the second episode of Encore.
Okay, Encore.
It was really cool. They did the Beauty and the Beast was the High School Musical that they did again.
Okay.
Not High School Musical.
I
but
gotcha.
Beauty. And Susan Egan helped them out. And to hear her instruct these amateurs on how to bring out the proper voice when singing a song, in this case Home, wow, that was pretty powerful. I really enjoyed that. And I'm trying to catch up on some old stuff. I saw Hunchback of Notre Dame just today. Saw Beauty and the Beast again. It's a good channel. It's just fun just to put on stuff. You know what I'll do? I'll go to the search and I'll just type in a random word and see what comes up and then pick one.
I have a confession.
What?
I've watched very little Disney Plus.
Yeah, that's a confession, all right.
Do you know? But what have I been watching? I've been watching a YouTube channel that's been doing all the cutscenes of the Jedi Fallen Order. Incredible. Amazing. And what's fun is elements of Batuu, elements of Galaxy's Edge have made their way in. The players have realized that they can build their lightsabers from Batuu in the game. And then other little nods here and there to the stories that are woven. So it's fun. But yeah, I think it was like 4.5 hours, and that's just the cutscenes. There's another guy who's going through and he's getting to a portion of the, I want to see the actual gameplay. And I think it's going to end up being 17 or so hours when all is said and done. It's amazing. But I am a horrible gamer.
But you can watch with nobody.
So yeah, so I'm
nobody's business.
I'm thankful for the people who are talented enough that I can watch it and keep up on the Star Wars mythology that is now being crafted within games like this, because it is stunning. So I guess that's it for this week, huh?
I think so.
We've kind of hit what we're going to do. I think that's I feel like we're beginning to get a feel for what we want to do. I think we want to kind of talk about some big, fun Disney travel-esque type. Hey, this is something that we love, and we'll share it with you. And then, hey, these are the hot things that have just kind of crossed our desk this week. So
Yeah, I like that.
yeah, for what it's worth.
For what it is.